And good evening, members of the Rebel Alliance, and welcome to another episode of Geek Life, your source for all the nerdy news you need to know. If you're new to the show, we're about a 2-hour-ish mashup of all the pop culture news you know and love. We talk about video games, movies, comics, TVs, and all the nerdy news you love, tossed on a beautiful word salad and served on a silver platter. My name is Dodd, and I am your host for the evening. Joining me today is a man that could be described as, I don't know, pretty sus to me. The man, the myth, the legend, Jake the Great. How are you doing today, Jake?
I'm doing very well because I saw Green do it in electrical.
You saw Green do it in electrical? I don't know, man. Orange is venting the whole time. I've never played the game. I just seen the memes, and I've gotten enough to get by with the memes.
That was
so.
good. That was
good. Yeah. And live from the land of jetpacks and hellfire, Bronwyn the Warrior Princess joins the fray. Bronwyn, how are things on the West Coast? Does it still look like that 70s show film set?
It's doing a lot better. The air quality is not the best. I still get the alerts, but I can see the downtown skyline now, and that's nice to be able to see again. Things have been good here.
It's good to see the skyline for sure, and not have the fog of war cast over everything, right? Well, before we get started, quick reminder that if you like anything you see or hear on the show tonight, feel free to follow us at Geeklife Live on at Geeklife Live, or on any of our social medias, or on any of our other social medias. We got YouTube, we got Twitter, we've got Instagram, all these things, right? Facebook. Yes, we got a Facebook page too. And you can also follow us for even more additional content in any of our personal streams. You can find my stream. You can find me on Twitch and on Twitter at Roosebane. You can find that below. And where can they find you, Jake?
You can find me at Gonzo Gone Live on Twitch, Twitter, all of the good things. It's right over here in some general direction. Yep.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Nailed
the
it.
guessing game continues. And Bronwyn, where can they find you?
You could find me at SpaceNiv, both on Instagram and here on Twitch.
There you go. Well, we have a really great show planned for you guys today, and we've got to get right now to it. Jake, what we got? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, awesome. We got a great show, Dodd. First off, toss a coin to your streamer, Oh Valley of Plenty. And I was going to sing it, but I didn't want to just drop that on you guys because then I'd get record deals and I couldn't do the show anymore.
You'd be leaving us, yeah.
We're kicking off the TV section with some Witcher news. And then COVID can't stop useless award shows. The Emmys was this week, and seriously, a vat of acid? And as always, with death, there comes life. We got more cancellations, but also some new shows that are coming your way later this year and next year. And then next, we're going to give you some movie news. But it's been postponed. No, seriously, a lot of shit's getting postponed again. So thanks, COVID. And speaking of COVID, it can't kill bats or dinosaurs, apparently. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later. And then we'll shank you in electrical, report the body, and say red looks sus. We got some video game news. Huge news, actually.
All the Among Us jokes tonight.
Microsoft couldn't get TikTok, so they bought Skyrim. And I wonder if they're finally going to port it to my Zune. That's a great joke if you had a Zune. Anyway, next we got more.
All three people that had a Zune are laughing really hard about that.
Hey, I had one. Let's hear some music.
Okay, two others then.
Next, we've got more leaks than a Farfetch'd.
Yeah,
right. That's for all you Pokemon fans. Then, as always, we'll dive deep for this week's deep dive. I've got some insight on some insider info, and that's a good one this week. But and then we'll wrap up the show with our top Zen, the best and worst acquisitions in gaming history. Pretty great one, especially with the new Bethesda news. So I'm excited to get into it. So let's get right into it. Bron, what's going on in the world of TV?
So The Witcher Season 2, there has been a recast for the role of Eskel. Netflix needed to recast this role because Thu Rasmussen, who played him in the show's first season, dropped out of the role after production delays brought on by a coronavirus pandemic caused a conflict in his schedule. Now Basil Edenbeds will take over the role in The Witcher Season 2. You may recognize Basil from Victoria, The Athena, and X Company. And if you've tossed a coin to the Netflix machine, right now you can watch not only the first season of The Witcher, if you haven't already, but also dive into every episode with The Witcher, a look inside the episodes, and also get even more behind the scenes with the documentary special, Making The Witcher. Now, The Witcher is a hugely successful show, and for someone to give up their role on that, especially for a relatively unknown actor, do you think that Rasmussen is stepping down just merely based on a scheduling conflict, or do you think there's more to the story, Dodd?
I mean, I think it's definitely going to be a scheduling conflict here. I don't think that. I mean, I can't imagine what. I've never heard of Basil Edinburgh before. I've never heard of either of these actors before. But I can't imagine that the spotlight of being on The Witcher is something that you want to pass up willingly. So hopefully we see them in something big afterwards and be like, okay, that's why you passed up on the Witcher opportunity. But other than that, it does look like you're kind of walking away from a good deal, in my opinion. Jake, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily give up my role on the Witcher series. I mean, even if it would have to be something big, like you said, like we better hear something huge coming up in this guy's like future, because like the Witcher series, it's already been renewed for the second season. The franchise is going to just continue to get bigger, I believe, especially considering that they're already talking about remastering it for the new Xboxes. And so, you know, and then with Cyberpunk coming out, CD Projekt Red's only going to get more street cred. More and more people are going to be talking about it, saying they love that, and then going, oh shit, I never played The Witcher, and going back to it. So I really don't think the franchise is going to slow down anytime soon. So it's an interesting move, to say the least. Yeah,
for sure. It's a super interesting move. But we've got tons of news to cover tonight, so we've got to move right along. We've got more than just The Witcher. We've got the Emmys to talk about, and there's a ton to talk about when it comes to the Emmys. Usually this is not something we'd cover, especially on Geeklife, because, like, you know, we do cover TV, movies, and comics and everything on the schedule there. But usually we don't see these nerdy shows making the headlines here. But that was not the case. Well, Schitt's Creek ended up nabbing 15 nominations, which we did give a shout out to Schitt's Creek, I think, a couple of weeks ago on our top 10 canceled series of 2020. Yeah. So it's interesting to see a canceled series receive so many of those nominations. But the big the big story of the night was Watchmen, which entered the night with a series leading 26 nominations, nabbed 4 awards, including Outstanding Limited Series and acting trophies for Regina King in Johanna Abdul Mateen, armed with 18 nominations. I mean, that's crazy. And not only that, but of course, as we mentioned earlier, Rick and Morty's Vat of Acid episode won Best Animated Series. So very, very interesting Emmys, especially if you're a nerd. Is it any surprise that Watchmen stole the show here, though, Braun? Especially with the 2020 vision and, you know, especially with Watchmen going for free on HBO for such a long time and getting so much visibility and being so relevant. I mean, a lot of people were educated on what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because of what happened on Watchmen, and they saw it there first. Is it any surprise to you that they won the show, Braun?
I'm not surprised, and I'm actually glad that they're getting this recognition and able to be in the spotlight like this. I mean, if you would have told me many, many years ago when I was first reading the Watchmen graphic novel series and would tell me that this was going to turn into spin-off to like win an Emmy, I would not even believe that, because it seems so just like outlandish and obscure. So I'm really glad that this is not only in the limelight, but it's getting this positive feedback.
For sure. It's great to see it do so well. It's great to see all these things that are successful. I mean, shout out to Rick and Morty, the Vat of Acid episode, making Best Animated Series. What, Jake? I know you got feelings on this about.
What? He's got tiny little rat bones. I love
it's that. It's such a trope episode. It's such a meta joke episode, and for it to be so highly awarded.
It's so insane. I mean, I love that it was, though. It deserved it in that aspect, right? And like you said, Schitt's Creek, I'm glad we gave a shout out to that. I'm a little bit Alexis, right? So there's, I love that show. And so I'm glad that it did really well. But The Watchmen, oh my God, dude, nailed it this year. And it was one of the greatest shows, or one of the best shows that I've watched recently. And like Bronwyn said, if you would have told me whenever that graphic novel turned to movie, because I think a lot of people remember how bad fans kind of shit on the movie for a long time. It's one of those that I think like was so split because comic book people were just like, oh, I wish it was more like graphic novel. But then movie fans were like, yo, that shit was dope. And so It was just one of those where it had a lot of fans split. And so it's interesting to see that the franchise is continuing to live. And I believe we talked about a few weeks back, HBO's even greenlit a Rorschach series. So, the Watchmen universe is going to continue to expand, and it was a super timely series this year, especially with the Tulsa stuff and everything going on in the world right now. And so it definitely deserved them, and Rick and Morty deserved it as well. It was a great Emmys.
Yeah. But with celebrations of some of these series, there have also been even more cancellations. COVID has not been merciful, and I don't think any of these actually were canceled due to COVID, but the cancellations this year have been severe. Bronwyn, give us the latest on the cancellation news.
Well, Supergirl is canceled after 6 seasons. The show will have a 20-episode final season to wrap things up. And that's beginning production later this month, actually. This doesn't come as a huge surprise. With the Arrowverse, all the attention seems to be on the up-and-coming Superman and Lois, which will follow these superhero and super journalists as they take on the trials and tribulations of parenting while also trying to save the universe. Another show that has been canceled after only its first season, so just a one and done, is the Dark Crystal prequel series. This news came only hours after the show won an Emmy for Best Children's Program.
Wow.
The executive producer, Lisa Henson, said that the team behind the show is grateful to Netflix for trusting them to realize this ambitious series, and that they will look for ways to tell more of this story in the future. So hopefully this is not all that we'll see from this, but yeah, that is kind of sad that right after they get this recognition, it's too late.
Yeah, no, it's a huge bummer. I loved the Dark Crystal. And the prequel here was fucking awesome. And I knew that we were going to get a season 2 because they said that the studio had already created all the sets, all the puppets, because it's a puppet show. It's, and so it's one of those where everything was already kind of made for it. They just had to write it, produce it, and everything, and put it together. And so it's really it's crazy. Netflix canned it after the one season, considering that it would have been so easy to pump out at least another few seasons of this.
I mean, I agree, and I had heard nothing but good things about it from fans of the series. So it's surprising to me to see it go as well. Supergirl, not as much. Supergirl, I feel like has been on the downturn for a while. I'm not gonna lie, I was big into the CW verse for a hot minute, and I watched season 1 of Supergirl. I was stuck around for a little bit of season 2, but it just. I can see that losing momentum, especially with some of the other series that are out there right now. And I can kind of see that, the CW verse has had a long run at this point. Like,
it's had a long one.
When is the time to start pulling the plug on some of these properties? And I think that, we got Arrow knocked down. I think Supergirl is kind of coming next. Flash is probably kind of dangling around up there, and then finally pull the plug on Legends of Tomorrow and then call it a day, because it's a lot that they have growing out there. Or maybe they just keep on making these properties and keep on expanding this universe out. Who knows? If it makes money, it makes money. But the Dark Crystal, that's just another Netflix one and done. Hate to see it happen, but it's definitely happened very frequently. So
Netflix has a history.
Yeah, they got a pattern. Well, with these cancellations, though, we've gotten a ton of new series announcements, and I mean a ton of great, awesome stuff to talk about that I'm super excited to talk about. But we're gonna have Jake talk about it. So, Jake, tell us a bit about a little bit about some of these announcements.
Yeah, with, every time, like I said earlier, with death, there comes life, right? And so we've got a ton of new shows coming. And I think some of these other series may have got canned because of just how competitive this market's getting, right? Supergirl's not going to be able to compete whenever HBO Max starts coming out with its own John Cena Peacemaker prequel.
John Cena!
Which is going to be really hard to film when you can't see him. But anyway, that's right. John Cena's Peacemaker must be the highlight of the new Suicide Squad movie because James Gunn is working on a prequel series with the star over on HBO Max. The streaming service announced today that John Cena's Peacemaker series will be exploring the origins of this character. James Gunn will write all 8 episodes, so it looks as for now it may be just kind of a limited run, this sort of a thing, but it's going to be for HBO Max, and he's helming multiple episodes himself, meaning not only will he write them but also produce them. The show will go into production at the beginning of 2021, just before Gunn begins work on the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So James Gunn is staying super busy, guys. The director explained that it is an opportunity to explore real-world issues through the super villain who he believes is achieving peace in very brutal methods. And so this is one that I think a lot of fans are going to be interested to see how it goes. But I did not think Peacemaker was going to be a very big part of the new Suicide Squad. We kind of thought, like, I think we even joked that he may
still may not be.
Yeah, no, that is very true. Very true. We're just going to have to wait and see. But speaking of crazy as far as like announcements, we got the final trailer for Wanda and Vision. And if you're confused as to what's going on in that trailer, you're not alone. Somehow Wanda and Vision are trapped inside a dream or a nightmare of the 1950s suburban America, or at least a TV show version of it. Vision might still be dead and also might be trick-or-treating in his classic comic book costume. Just what exactly is going on here? Dodd, did you get a chance to check it out? And what have you thought about the WandaVision trailer so far?
I did. One, I love the cameo with Vision's original outfit. I think that's amazing. I really love the artistic direction they took with it in a lot of different ways. And I think that they tried to make it really visually look like you're kind of tripping out.
Yeah.
And that... it seems very interesting. It seems like a very interesting take. It seems like a very Legion-esque take, if any of you guys caught Legion.
I did, and I get what you're saying. It does kind of have a Legion vibe to it.
Right, where it has that kind of like, it's you're dealing with superheroes, but you're mostly dealing with superheroes in a mental capacity and like an idealistic capacity. And with that kind of direction, I would love to see where Wanda and Vision goes.
Yeah.
Comparing it especially with Legion and how amazing Legion was, yeah, I'm super excited to see where that goes. Brahman, did you get a chance to check it out?
I did, yeah. I'm really excited. I just really love the aesthetic of everything and the like black and white kind of 1950s feeling look.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I wonder if Wanda will be able to vote.
That'll be one to figure out for sure.
Something people forget when they romanticize the 50s.
But that's not even all the announcements that they had this week, right? There's even more.
No, we're still going. We'll find out what that trailer finally means this year around December, by the way. So that's something that we can all look forward to at the end of the year. But speaking of Disney Plus coming out with some bangers, Samuel L. Jackson is set to star in a Nick Fury series. Disney Plus keeps rolling with a Samuel L. Jackson finally set to get to star in his own Nick Fury series. The Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. will headline his own show almost 10 years after first rumored, which is awesome. Like, you know, I think like it's something that after a decade of rumors to finally kind of come out, it's great that Disney Plus has given a lot of these kind of like little side franchises, if you will, a place to live. And oh man, dude, competing with Netflix, like Daredevil, all that stuff was great. But like, if we get a Mando-esque, you know, level of that Wanda and Vision, or even this Nick Fury series, it's going to be phenomenal. Variety reports that Kyle Badsheet will be attached to write and executive produce the Marvel Studios finance series. And there's no official date as of yet, but it's still something that we can all be at least a little bit excited for. I need Samuel on my TV as much as possible. And then last but not least in the new announcements, as for now, The Boys is getting a spinoff. Just weeks after the second season of The Boys premiered, Amazon is doubling down on the franchise, and they're developing a spinoff series. According to Variety, the new series will be written and showrun by Craig Rosenberg, who reportedly set at a Vought International College exclusively for young adult superheroes. The show is described as a college show that meets The Hunger Games with the same heart, satire, and raunchiness of the flagship series. They note that it will be an R-rated series. that explores the lives of hormonal, competitive soups as they put their physical, sexual, and moral boundaries to the test, competing for the best contracts in the best cities. No data as of yet, but Series 3 was already greenlit by Amazon, and so it's clear that they're going all in on the boys, which is something that I am actually all here for as well. How about yourself, Dot? Have you got a chance to check out the boys yet?
Oh, I'm all caught up. It's my Friday show now, and especially, excuse me, especially with this new show coming out. I really think that they're going to be able to get into their own material and really take this into a place that we've wanted to go within the context, within the original show, but we're limited to the content that the comics are based off of. Yeah. And this will allow them to really explore that universe in a much more appropriate fashion, and one that will really beget a lot of humor, I think it's a lot of it's the perfect ingredients to mix with what's been so successful with the boys. Yeah. And so I'm super excited about this series. It definitely seems that Amazon has decided that this is their flagship series. This is the series that's really going to be their bread and butter, because they are doubling down on it financially over and over and over again. Braun, I know you've gotten to check out the boys as well. What do you think about this? Are you excited as well?
Oh, yeah, I'm so excited. I actually just started getting all caught up on it last night. So I still have a little bit to go. I'm about 4 episodes in, or maybe 3 or 4 episodes in. How many are out right now?
I think we're at like 5 or 6.
Okay,
no, new season's at like, I think it's 6,
5.
because I think we have 2 more, because it's 8 for each season. But I'll have to double check.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm getting caught up right now, which is nice. And
for a trip.
This spinoff sounds exciting. I mean, raunchy college drama, like with the same kind of elements as the boys. I'm so for that.
Look, there's never been a series that's done superhero sex like the boys has.
Yeah.
Bringing that into a college realm, I mean, that's going to be crazy.
Could you imagine superhero fraternities and hazing?
Right? Oh
which is something that it's definitely going to get into. Like, you can go ahead and call it right now. Like, that's going to be something they talk about. And so
I already see Homelander as a frat boy with too much power.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I mean, again, the environment really lends itself to really create some fantastic content in their flavor, if you will.
Yeah, and this second season's really gotten into the kind of like semantics of superhero-ness,
Right.
like as far as like contracts and, stuff like that, like movies and like, kind of really getting into this whole thing of like, the Seven's not just a superhero group that saves the world. They're a brand, they do movies, they're action figures, they're all these things. And so like, it's really starting to get into more of the business aspects of it, which is so like, I know it sounds nerdy as fuck, but the bureaucracy of superheroes has always like been something that I find hilarious. Look at One Punch Man, like that's something that's kind of like the staple of it, right?
Hey, the bureaucracy of superheroes is an integral part of it, and it's a part that's often not highlighted. I mean, but it's also when I say it's integral part of it, I mean, like you're going to talk about the bureaucracy of superheroes. What is Lex Luthor other than the bureaucracy of superheroes? Yeah, and that entire concept. Exactly.
The whole, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and so it's just one of those where, like, I think this is an interesting one where it's going to have these superheroes kind of competing for contracts because they're in college. They're probably trying to get internships similar to a My Hero Academia style thing. Think of a rated R My Hero live action. That's kind of what we're getting.
Ooh, I couldn't be more excited for the series, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that's about all we have for movie or TV news, because we have a ton of more stuff to cover. Starting right off with Jacqueline Phoenix signing on for 2 more Joker movies. I guess they're not going to give up that moneymaker just quite yet. Warner Brothers, that is. Bronwyn, tell us a little bit more about this story.
Yeah, so Joaquin Phoenix is signing on to 2 more Jokers, or maybe signing on, sorry. He may be signing on to 2 more Jokers. Despite Phoenix saying Joker was a one-and-done kind of film, Warner Brothers is offering him a hefty sum of $50 million for the 2 sequels that are in the works right now. Phoenix was late to sign on originally, and he's kind of notorious for his... he does what he wants, basically. And so But
Polite way of putting it.
Warner really wants him on this, and they're doing everything they can, pulling out all the stops to get him locked in and prepare for their desired 2022 and 2024 release dates. So, yeah.
Well, that's super awesome to hear. I'm excited to hear, see more Joker movies for sure. Although, with that said, I am a little bit critical of it. And the reason I say that is because the way that Joaquin Phoenix approached this, the first Joker movie, was a one and done. I'm going to go in and create this experience, and going into it, he was very adamant about not doing a sequel. Mm-hmm. With that said, we know him signing on for a sequel is just signing on for a sequel because they're going to offer him more money in doing so. And so it's kind of the sellout decision. Does that mean that we're going to get that lack in quality that usually comes with the sellout? I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
I hope this movie never happens. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but dude, kill it with fire. Do not let them make another Joaquin Phoenix Joker film. Like, the first one was perfection. Mm-hmm. And it was made, and it felt done. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't need any more from the universe. I don't need any more background. I don't need to go see Joaquin Phoenix fight Ben Affleck. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to see that. What
about fighting Rob Pat?
I don't need to see that either. Like, it's just
all right.
It's the Joker. It's like, I love him, right? I have a brand new gamer chair that's Joker made out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I fucking love the Joker. He's my favorite villain. But at the end of the day, like, this movie was a one and done. They kind of like set it up like that from the very beginning. Like a cameo of Joaquin, maybe, right? Like in a future one, something in the background. But like, I don't want to say it's time to put Joker to rest, but it's definitely time to give him a little bit of a break. Let some of the other rogues take some of the highlights, because it's like Batman has a ton of amazing villains that really need to start getting a little bit more film time. And just for this specific film alone, like maybe something in the future would be awesome to see. But as of right now, like, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to say I wouldn't watch it,
Also, if you're craving something like the Joker, why don't you just go through Scorsese's catalog, and I think you'll be perfectly satisfied.
That is kind of true.
All they did was rip off Goodfellas.
That is kind of true. But like, it's an amazing film. I don't want to make it sound like I'm shitting on the first Joker, but it is one of those that I felt like it was enough. I was full, right? Like, and anything else was just going to be a little bit of overkill, in my opinion. And like you said, it'd probably be just Joaquin taking it for money, which I don't think he really needs anyway. So I don't think he's going to do it.
No. And he could walk away from that performance and still have the amazing reputation for that performance in that Joker. And he could still go down in the Hall of Fame with the rest of the Jokers, and like, yes, Joaquin Phoenix is a Joker. That's a great one.
He could
look at it on the wall.
Away.
Joaquin away. But Tiss.
You're welcome.
But that's not all in the news of the capitalistic industry that is the movie industry. Disney announces a release date change for about 10 movies. Now, some of these are a little bit interesting. So I'm going to kind of go through these bullet by bullet. Death on the Nile got moved from October 23rd to December 18th of this year. So it got moved back. The Empty Man moved from December 4th to October 23rd. Yeah, that's right. You're hearing that. That moved up a month, 2 months. The Black Widow is the big one of this whole debacle. Will now release on May 7th, 2021 instead of November 20. Or is there May 7th, 2021 instead of November 2020? So getting backed out about 6 more months. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will now follow Black Widow. Pay attention to that. We'll return back to that point in a second. And will be released on July 9th of 2021. So with this means the MCU Phase 4 has been reshuffled. Eternals will now arrive third, following Shang-Chi. So you're going to go Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and then Eternals. And that's going to be Marvel's Phase 4. And the Eternals will be coming out on November 5th. 2021. It was previously set to hit theaters on February 2021. So getting moved back. You can't do that math on the fly, but pretty much 10 months, I think. Just about 8 months after being originally set for fall of this year. as the date. So kind of interesting there. Several unreleased films set for July and August of 2021 have been just outright canceled, which really sucks for the people that signed the NDA-bound workers that have, I'm surely begun work on those awesome projects and can't even talk about them. Deep Water, which is some weird Ben Affleck rom-com, moves from November to August 13th, 2021. West Side Story gets a year-long delay from December 18th to December 10th, 2021. And the Kingsman prequel continues to find its struggle for its release date venue. However, this film has actually been moved up as well from February 26, 2021 to a week earlier, February 12th, 2021. I'm not shocked to see a lot of these dates be pushed back, but some of these dates are being pushed up. Why do you think that Disney would do this, particularly like Death of the Nile is being moved up about 2 months? And then, Death of the Nile is being moved back, but The Empty Man is being moved up. And then you have Kingsman being moved up for about a week, but that's pretty far out. Why do you think that Disney is shuffling these dates? Why do you think it's particularly they'd be moving any dates up right now at all, Jake?
Yeah, I think up is kind of bizarre, right? Because with everything going on with COVID, it kind of maybe it's that they pushed it back to give themselves more time, and then they found out, okay, well, maybe this movie's doing okay in select theaters, right? Or like, the straight to DVD did okay for this. Let's maybe try it with that, like video on demand stuff. And so I don't know, man. Like, honestly, it's going to be interesting to see how Disney and a lot of movie studios, to be honest, kind of continues to handle the rest of this year. Christmas is a huge movie day. We all know, like, that holiday movie releases are massive. And, I went to a drive-in not too long ago, and it wasn't bad, but it was expensive. It was one of those where, like, a lot of places who have had to make makeshift drive-ins, like Alamos around the country that have been trying to make them, they're charging about $15 a person. And that's kind of like, what? And
Isn't that average? In LA it is.
I guess, for LA. It depends on where you're at, right? Like here in Virginia, don't pay that.
It is average for Alamo, because I know that's about how much I pay for it at Alamo here in Austin. But Alamo is also the bougie restaurant. Like, that's where you get the
$30 a car, but you could only have 2 people. And so if you had 4 people, it would have been 60. And so, like, I don't know, like, it's one of those, unless it was kids or something, like, they had weird rules. They didn't even scan our tickets. I don't want to talk about it.
That is weird.
We paid $30 and they didn't even scan them. I was like, what the fuck? I could have came here for free. But no, like, it's shocking to see, like, a lot of these things get kind of pushed up because, like, COVID's kind of pushed back a lot of things. To me, it says that they gave some arbitrary date. And then, now they're just like, fuck it, push it, send it, let's go. But like, to see them continue to get postponed makes more sense, right? They're trying to get the big ones out there, like whenever the theaters can open back up to full capacity. And so that's what a lot of people are kind of like holding out for right now. I think every studio knows its movies that are going to do good. And every studio also knows its movies that are going to do okay. And so I think this is Disney treating some of their ones that are going to do okay different than the ones that they're going to do good, Yeah.
I mean, I think that what they're doing mostly is they're reshuffling properties that they don't think are going to do as well and trying to kind of fit them in between their schedule in better situations. And I think for some of them, like The Empty Man, that may be jumping it up, 2 months or so. So we'll see how that goes. There's a lot of factors at play with that whole, 10 movie shuffle. Yeah. So we'll see how that progresses. But COVID continues to cause all different kinds of problems, not just in release date shuffles, but just in filming in general. Jurassic World and both Batman are suffering from issues of that. Bronwyn, you got more on these stories. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with the COVID situation, Batman and Jurassic World and all this craziness. I feel like we've had this story before.
Right? It just keeps on building. Jurassic World producers learned tough lessons on filming during COVID. Universal is taking the coronavirus concern seriously as they begin production on the next installment of Jurassic World. They have rented out an entire hotel near their set in the UK where the cast and crew live and get regularly tested. Since the start of production, they have processed over 27,000 tests and spent $3 million on testing alone. Under 10 of which returned as positive, which seems like a small price to pay for the safety of their team. especially considering the franchise has grossed upwards of $1 billion so far. So they're really pulling out all the stops here. And anyone who has been exposed to someone with a positive test must spend 14 days in isolation, which leads to roadblocks throughout filming because you may have a crew member who just can't show up for work for 2 weeks. So this is probably going to be a long and strenuous production, but they were eager to get started, so that's what they get.
I feel like when we finally get Jurassic World, it's going to be like all janky and weird. It's going to be edited in and out,
The boom guy like couldn't go to work that day. Like
exactly, just trying to get the best that they can.
One of the sea monsters is clearly filmed in a bathtub.
But that's not the only film in production right now. The Batman is set to film in Chicago next month. After being a bat down, as our Pat tested positive for COVID, the Batman is now finally ready to resume filming. They are scheduled to shoot in downtown Chicago next month, with reports hinting at an extensive driving sequence. So whether that'll be the whole cast or stunt doubles, we don't know, but there should be some excitement in the streets of Chicago in the coming month. And with much of the film having already been shot in the UK, this inclusion of the Chi-Town vibe should add for an interesting merging of aesthetics in the Gotham that Matt Reeves is creating. I feel like we've been here before. Dodd, do you want to elaborate and share some of your thoughts concerning these productions?
I mean, I think that they got to look at this differently. I think they got to come up with different methods of doing this. I think that, that they needed to kind of maybe even take, the bubble approach maybe and start filming in a quarantined area or a bubble or something like that. I don't know. But this clearly is not a cost-effective way to film right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's very, very risky to not only, the crew and everything else there, but actors and directors and all the other people as well. So I don't know. I think that the story is going to keep on coming, and we're going to keep on talking about it. We'll save the image because we're definitely going to be using it in the future. But it's just been interesting to watch, especially these two movies in particular, Jurassic World and the Batman, during all this COVID situation and how they've adapted to it or lack thereof.
Yeah, and I think in the case of Jurassic World, they are kind of trying to create their own bubble by isolating everybody working on it. They even have the hotel staff there are like living in the hotel with them. So they're really trying to just create this like little universe in which they're in control of what's going on and can stop spreading and all of that. But it's very
like they're doing
extreme.
all they can.
It's very extreme, though.
That seems like, that's almost one of the only ways it seems like you can do it right now,
Yeah.
And so kudos to them, Like you said, $12 million is just a drop in the bucket to a franchise that's grossed $1 billion.
That's true. Very, very true.
30 million.
Yeah.
30 million. Oh,
30 million.
That's a little bit bigger drop, but it's still $1 billion,
Well, speaking about billions and billions of dollars, we've got video game news, and we couldn't go anywhere without talking about the big news of the week, which is Xbox bought Bethesda. Our local Microsofty, Jake, give us the rundown. Let us know what's going on with this big Bethesda buyout.
Yeah, Microsoft will acquire ZeniMax Media for $7.5 billion in cash money. And if you don't know, ZeniMax Media is the official company name of the owners of Bethesda Studios. The planned acquisition includes publishing offices and development studios spanning the globe with over 2,300 employees, including Bethesda Softworks, Bethesda Game Studios, ID Software, ZeniMax Online Studios, Arcane, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog, and Roundhouse Studios. So a little bit more than just Bethesda, but Bethesda's obviously the big name in there, right? Yeah. Bethesda's critically acclaimed and best-selling franchises include The Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein, and Dishonored, many others, right? But those are just probably the ones everyone on here has played before. Right. This is a huge move by Xbox, and it's excited many Xbox players out there for the future of exclusive possibilities. And especially around that whole Bethesda Studios, the Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, some of those games becoming, Xbox exclusives could be huge for the future of these console wars in a way, right? That we are talking about that was kind of over, or at least we thought they were. And that's not all, though, from Xbox. The Series X and S pre-orders crashed multiple retailers' websites. Much like Sony's pre-order woes, the Xbox saw Best Buy and GameStop's and Microsoft sites crash due to heavy traffic on the day of pre-order releases. Fans are super stoked about a lot of this new news, not just the new Xbox coming out, but the new exclusives that could be coming in the future with this new Bethesda buyout. And Bronwyn, I know you're a little bit of an Elder Scrolls fan, so were you one of those waiting in line?
Very much so. I was totally shocked when this news came out, especially because we spent last week's episode talking about our gaming system affinities, and I was so on the side of I'm never switching from PlayStation. I'm never gonna change my stance on this, loyal to PlayStation. And as soon as this came out, I just took a deep breath and I was like, okay, I'm buying an Xbox.
Turncoat. Turncoat. No, this is great news for Xbox, really, and it is a great, especially with Sony's announcement last week. We were talking about it. We were talking about the console wars, especially with them coming out there and giving that 1-2 punch that they did to the crowd when they announced, the digital version and being able to have a cheaper console that you're not really compromising for. For Xbox to come out with something like this and be like, hey, by the way, Elder Scrolls may be an Xbox exclusive in the future. Yeah, that changed a lot of people's minds real quick. And I think it's a great way for them to kind of fight back, if you will, against the Sony's announcement.
Yeah. No, and just so everyone knows, there hasn't been anything that's come out that says officially that Elder Scrolls and things like that are,
right.
in the future going to be
speculation.
It's just speculation at this point.
Would you buy this and then not hold it as an exclusive when it's going to really? I think if I was Microsoft, I totally would, because you're going to take people like me, for example, who are going to buy
$7.5 billion in cash. When you buy in cash, this isn't like a stock value deal. This is outright Microsoft now owns Bethesda, right? And so it's one of those where this isn't them taking an invested interest. This isn't them just partnering anymore. This is them saying, we own this studio. This is now ours, and we're taking it under the Microsoft umbrella, right? And so it's just one of those where it's really going to be up to Microsoft on if they want to play nice in the future when it comes to some of these franchises. Doom's always kind of felt like a computer game, so it always felt like something that, was in that Microsoft realm. But I know a lot of people love it, so it's just going to be interesting to see how the future of these exclusives play out with this huge move.
Do you think this means that they're going to stop trying to remake Skyrim for the fucking Game Boy Advanced or
like I joke, dude, but I want it on my Zune. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? No, they're trying to make it for everything.
I honestly hope so. That is probably my biggest beef with Bethesda and the Elder Scrolls thing, is that they have just completely, Skyrim. I think they've remade Skyrim. How many times has it been ported now? It's on everything.
Fair to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, you can literally, I'm pretty sure you can play Skyrim on TS98 calculators or whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised, for sure. For sure. But that's not the only big video game news. We've got even more news and more leaks than the White House after a rigged election. Robin, tell us a little bit about some of these video game leaks that we've got going on.
Yeah, well, Nintendo accidentally announced a new Kirby game with no press release, no official announcement, not even a tweet. Kirby Fighters 2 just suddenly appeared on Nintendo's website.
Okay.
This listing was taken down almost immediately, but since the internet never forgets, here's the game description that was posted. Choose from a cast of Kirby's most iconic copy abilities, including the brand new wrestler ability and duke it out to be the last Kirby standing. Familiar friends and foes like Bandana Waddle Dee and King Dedede, or I don't know who Bandana Waddle Dee is. What? That must be a new thing. And King Dedede also make an appearance as playable characters in the Kirby Fighters 2 game, available exclusively for Nintendo Switch system. So, yeah, they just kind of jumped the gun on that one. They leaked themselves.
I think it's funny when Nintendo tries to pretend that fans are familiar with the Kirby universe outside of the characters available in Smash Brothers.
Right? I'm like, who is this Waddle Dee? I don't know.
Yeah. Fans may remember familiar faces like Waddle Dee. What do you mean?
No.
Like the little Ben, like the Kirby's that had the Snuggie on too, like that looked like a cross between the Fallout guy, the Fall Guys, and Kirby. Like those, I remember those guys, but that's what we called them. That weird description.
Yep.
man.
So that's what's going on in the Nintendo leaks, but that is not it. We have more. Call of Duty leaks were also a thing this week. Unlike Nintendo's fumble on their own website, this leak came to surface by way of the prominent Call of Duty leaker, The Gaming Revolution, for the upcoming game Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War Zombies. I know that's a very long name. Their YouTube video revealed details of maps such as a remake of the Nacht des Untoten map that will lean into the Cold War theme instead of sporting its usual World War II design. The Gaming Revolution also showed specialized weapons that are pivotal in taking down of enemies in zombie mode, as well as the return of the ray gun. Perks like Deadshot, Speed Cola, Juggernaut are mentioned in the video as well, including a brand new perk called Elemental Pop. If you are weary about these leaks' validity, it is notable that Activision quickly wiped the Gaming Revolution's video due to, quote, a copyright claim. So they were very swift on getting that taken down. They didn't want anyone to see it. So that can kind of make you think,
looks
this could
a
be
little
accurate.
guilty.
Yeah, looks a little guilty. Yeah. But Jake, do these leaks have you excited at all?
I mean, I'm not the hugest Call of Duty fan, but the last time I did play is whenever zombies was still a big thing. And so this is supposed to be a return to glory for the zombies mode. So definitely looking forward to it. And also, I think I may actually play this Call of Duty. The Cold War, I've always wanted Ronald Reagan to tell me to do war crimes. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of always been a goal of mine. So really looking forward to this one, getting to play with some Ronald Reagan, learn about some voodoo economics. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just, maybe botch the Bay of Pigs.
Press
I don't know.
F to send crack to inner cities.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe, press F to accidentally botch a few assassinations on Fidel Castro. Maybe move cocaine to buy guns. Iran Contra. Anyway, Ronald Wilson Reagan 666. Anyway, I'm super excited for this game, and I think I'll be checking it out. This may be one of the first Call of Duties I played in a while, and I actually mean that. So,
yeah, I want the leak to come out that Ronald Reagan told Kirby to commit war crimes, but I think I'm just wishful thinking there. But I mean, I think a more realistic version of Call of Duty zombies that would be more relevant to today's society is if you did like a Karen's version of it, where you just were just shooting, people that were, massive waves of Karens trying to storm you and I'm not gonna wear a mask and
coughing on you,
coughing and just being biohazards. I think that would be a really good, fun, interesting version of Call of Duty
Karens.
Call of Duty Karens. I think that's something that needs to be there. That's not all that is going on in the world of video games. It would be pretty sus if we didn't talk about what's going on with Among Us. And so, Jake, saw you climbing into that vent. Why don't you tell us a little bit what you're doing in there?
First off, I was not climbing in any vents. I was doing the little turn thing in electrical. No, I was shooting the asteroids. Anyway,
I saw you venting.
Among Us 2 seems pretty sus to me. Which, if you haven't heard, Among Us is a party game where you work as a team and try to figure out who is sabotaging the crew of your spaceship. Earlier it was earlier announced that there was going to be a sequel to this game. But just to kind of put it in perspective, whenever this game first came out, the developer said that they had around, I think he said they had around 8,000 users at its peak. And as of the other day, I think it hit 3 million. And so that's this game has been out since 2017. So, though the sequel had been announced just 36 days ago, developer Innersloth, yeah, I said that right, wants to support the game that is so popular right now. The main reason we were shooting for a sequel is because the code base of Among Us 1 is so outdated that we cannot build and support adding too much to the content. Innersloth said in a blog post, however, seeing how many people are enjoying Among Us really makes us want to support the game and take it to the next level. So this is where the developer, kind of built this game a few years back, threw it up on Steam and a few other places, and was just like, okay, a couple folks liked it, but it just didn't work out. And so they were already in this whole thought process of yo, we're going to build a sequel and we're going to make it a little bit better. We're going to add to it, maybe more people and enjoy it, all of that, right? This is the same old song and dance that's happened a few times where a developer will push a game, it'll do okay, and the sequel really puts it on the map. That was not the case for Among Us because the original went viral. Obviously, everybody's heard about Among Us. The memes have been everywhere. There's been multiple celebrities playing it. I watched T-Pain stream the other day where he was playing it. A lot of famous YouTubers have been playing it, putting in a lot of time on it. And so it's getting a ton of streaming time right now on Twitch right here. And so it's one of those things where the developer kind of took a look at it and said, we're going to 86 the sequel for now. We got to focus on getting the servers better for number one. We got to make number one a better game because it is the one with millions of users on it right now. And I honestly have my Discord blowing up right now of people trying to find a few games. And so I'm like, dude, come on, watch the show. But they're like, come on, play Among Us because everybody's feeding because it's such a fun game. And so this is actually good news, in my opinion, that they're not going to be focusing on a number two and that they're going to just continue to make number one a great game for everybody to play because that's the one that literally I think most people just heard of. They don't want a sequel just yet. We're still getting the first one.
Yeah, I was surprised that it was made in 2017. I didn't realize that this was something that hadn't come out this year. I don't really understand how it just shot up and became viral. I don't know what happened or what sparked that, but it's a great example of one of those games that grew because of the culture around it and the memes. Once you get a game that's got good memes and you invade people's social media feeds and they go, okay, I've got to see what this thing is. Yeah. That's when you get some of the best games. And I'm really happy to see Among Us fall in that category.
No, and what's crazy about it, because, is that, and we have a few people popping off in chat about it, but essentially this is a game that a lot of people have played throughout their lives. You've either heard of, Werewolf, Mafia, these are all games that we either played as a kid at some kind of crazy church camp or, or you may have played at Mallet if you went to the University of Alabama. We used to run Mafia games all the time. And so it's one of those where a lot of people have heard of this game, but they've never heard of it on an actual game, system or anything where you can play it. So Among Us is just kind of taking the world by storm because of the familiarity, but then also the ease of access. It's on everything except for most, you can play it on your cell phone. Yeah. You can play it on your iPad. And so it's one of those and we can play cross-platform on, my PC, you're on your cell phone. We can all join Discord. It's really kind of awesome how a lot of people are coming together. It also makes you add, or not doesn't make you, but it really encourages you to add friends and everything and play with people And so I think that's really done nothing but help it spread like wildfire.
Maybe I could see if I could stream some Among Us this week. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, definitely. We're going to be in the Discord. Join some of the games.
Yeah.
Join as well.
We do a Geek Life Among Us game.
Yeah.
Oh, should.
It would be great.
Anyone in the chat want to join too?
Yes. Hit us up in chat if you guys want to do that. But actually, with that, we're going to actually go ahead and take a break. But before we do, we don't have any follows to thank for it. We do. No, we got a new follow. Quarleen Henzel. Thank you so much for the follow. And we do. Let's see. We got chat's just been popping off about Among Us, right? That's what we've been talking about. Werewolf.
Yeah, everybody was stoked for the new Kirby. That was a big one. A lot of people said that Danny DeVito's Penguin gave them nightmares because I gave a shout out saying I want it to come back before a new Joker. And then it's been a lot of people talking about Mafia or Werewolf. I'll actually try to drop a link to the Discord that we have going into the chat later as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's a good idea. See if we can get a good little Geek Life Among Us game going. That'd be great.
Hell yeah.
All right. And remind you guys, if you want to be up to date on all the nerdy news you need to know, be sure to give us a follow here on Twitch, like us on all the other social medias, tweet at us, YouTube us, Instagram us, do all those things. And with that, we're going to kick it off to a break, and we'll see you guys in 5.
And now, a message from Captain America.
Hi kids, I'm Captain America. And today, I'm here to remind you that the word Antifa means anti-fascist. And being anti-fascist means punching Nazis in the f***ing face. And do you know who loves punching Nazis in the f***ing face? That's right, this guy. So, unless you think I'm a terrorist, you should stop calling Antifa one. I honestly can't believe I'm having to explain this to you, but here we are. Go vote.
Retro.
And we are back. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our showcase of Pokemon Retro there.
That's an exclusive.
It is very much an exclusive. But let's get into the deep dive because we got a lot to talk about today. And tonight, the deep dive is some insights into inside information between leaks, whistleblowers, callouts, and smoke screens. Inside information seems to be everywhere. But inside information... everywhere but inside the confines of where it should be, at least, you know? With the internet well past its infancy, people have started to truly recognize the power of publicity. Some have even used publicity to leak info. Some have used it to hold powerful people accountable. But first off, before we start, we got to start off with our definitions. You know how we are. Most of our conversations will revolve around whistleblowers and leakers. A whistleblower is someone who exposes secretive information or activity within a private or public organization that is deemed illegal, unethical, or not correct. A leaker is simply someone who makes something secret known to the public. So, while whistleblowers are all technically leakers, we don't typically put them in the same category. And why is that, Jake?
I mean, I believe it's more about what the information really is that they're leaking, right? Like, you know, if it's kind of like a, intellectual property or IP, as some people like to call it, then to me, that's more of like a leak. Whereas if it's like a director was super racist and, like people, calls for like a chaotic kind of like environment, that's a whistleblower, right? And so leaks always seem to be data of some sort, I think in the past, right? Like, I've always, at least me anyway, I feel like leaks tend to be either some sort of like data that got like mined or like maybe it was some files that got, leaked or something. And so like, whereas a whistleblower is usually like a person. I know leaks can be people too, right? Like, they can leak information, but like to me, it's always like a whistleblower. Yeah, a leaker, right? And so, like, one of the examples that I first thought of whenever we started talking about this was Snowden. Snowden was like a whistleblower who also provided a ton of leaks. And so he was kind of like the best of both, right? And whistleblowers typically kind of highlight some sort of wrongdoing, really. Whereas leaks may not always be wrongdoing, right? Like leaks could just be like specs to a console. And so,
Yeah.
But that's just what I think. What do you think about it, Braun? Is there any big difference here to you?
Your last point basically touched on what I was going to say perfectly. I think that a whistleblower has some sort of sense of morality, or they're trying to do something that they think is right and bring to surface an issue that they think someone's doing some sense of wrongdoing, whereas a leak is just information that's going out there. Maybe releasing that information could be morally wrong depending on what you're looking at, but I think that it's just, here's the data, like, do with it what you will. Whistleblowers like, this is wrong because of this, and I'm exposing it for this reason. So there's just more of that sense of a moral compass when it comes to whistleblowing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree for the most part. I mean, I think that the major difference that we've been talking about here is the morality of the information that you're putting out there. If you're putting it out to help the public, to let the public be more aware of something, to hold powerful people accountable, then you end up more in the whistleblower category. But by definition, you are still technically leaking information. So I think that that's how it categorizes. Mostly, again, all whistleblowers are technically leakers, but not all leakers are technically whistleblowers, in my opinion. Well, not in my opinion. That's the just definition of it, straight up. So, but there have been a lot of major leaks recently. We've covered a lot of them on here. Some with really serious implications as well. Brahman, any particular come to mind that we should mention here in this conversation?
Well, I mean, we mentioned two of them earlier today, the Nintendo and Call of Duty information.
Yeah.
I think that's just a simple leak. As we said, it's just trying to, I mean, one of them was Nintendo doing it to themselves. It wasn't like anybody getting their information. It was just a little whoops, a slip of the keyboard. But
likely a slip of a keyboard from a lower level employee or somebody that may be, that may have. I mean, even if it was accidentally, they still leaked that info.
Yeah, true. Oh, I didn't even think about it that way. Interesting. But then there's, I think we've touched on this in previous weeks, but the whistleblowing, especially in the case of Ray Fisher and that whole situation, trying to bring to light these major heads of studios and directors who aren't doing their jobs right, who are abusing their power. I think that there's a lot of, you could even think of cancel culture in a sense as whistleblowing, because they're bringing to light some sort of wrong that needs to be fixed and dealt with, or people that need to be held accountable for their actions.
I mean, technically, anybody that reported anything in the Me Too movement and all of the cancellations that happened off of that, those are all leaks. I think that it's interesting to talk about them all in the same context, because all at the same day, they're all leaking information. They're all giving information unwillingly to the public to expose somebody. But in certain circumstances, that can be a really powerful tool for change, and a really powerful tool to kind of not only steer the direction of certain media outlets, for instance, Warner Brothers, or, in for instance, Kevin Spacey's case, that was Netflix, and what was his big hit show that he had? It's been so long, I forgot about it. House of Cards. Yeah. So, and giving up House of Cards, I mean, at the time when that happened, that seemed very unrealistic. But it did change that. It also, because of that, changed the threshold of what we'll accept with that. If someone's a piece of trash and that information becomes exposed to the public, then we're going to change our mind about IPs that we've had, intellectual properties that we've had attachment tos for a long time. Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of it. But speaking of just big leaks in general, one of the particular ones that comes to mind is the Giga leak from Nintendo, and that was a huge leak. More on the leak information side, with all of beta sprites from past Pokemon games, past designs from Nintendo maps. I mean, that was one of the first episodes we did was the Giga Leak, and those are some of the ones that come to my mind. But I know that there's more out there. Jake, can you think of any others?
The big one I think of was the one that affected tons of people years ago, and it was more of a hack, but also a big data leak, was the Sony one, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Sony lost or, had like tons of people's account information that was put into the ether out there, right, into the internet. A lot of emails, a lot of passwords, especially for some PS Plus users. Or the large majority of PS Plus users. The Sony network was down 3 months almost, I want to say. Like, it was one of those things where that hack was so huge. PlayStation Network was down for multiple weeks while they tried to fix that. And then when they came back, they gave us free games and a bunch of other stuff, to make up for it. But the damage had kind of been done not only to the gaming community, but also movies. Adam Sandler had a couple of there was a bunch of emails around him that was leaking and how terrible his movies were and how they had been bombing, and Sony was trying to get out of their contract, and so these data leaks like this, even when they're a hack, it's still a leak in my opinion, right? So it's one of those where you could even consider some of the big what was the fappening almost as a huge data leak, where a lot of celebrities had their nudes leaked and everything. And so, there's been tons of leaks like this that have happened and, in the past, and they have some serious implications. I think Sony, they were in the hot seat. A lot of executives were in the hot seat after that big leak. And so they even got out of that contract with Adam Sandler, and he ended up moving over to Netflix from Sony just from his emails being leaking. And so there's been a ton of leaks that have had some huge implications in the past. And so it's just one of those things where I think they happen, you get a big one about every year or two. And it's one of those things that kind of it affects a lot of people down the line.
Yeah, exactly. I think those are some great points. And this is some great examples of leaks that I didn't even think about, especially in the regards of hacks, because those are leaks as well. Yeah. And the PlayStation hack, that was a huge one. I remember that one. That was absolutely huge. We've talked about a lot of negative examples, though. We've talked about different examples, actually. We talked about whistleblowers as well. But on a high level, are leakers a good thing? I mean, in the argument of the sake of, the truth is the truth, and you'd rather know the truth, right? Yeah. Knowing the truth should always be a good thing, right? Are there any downsides to leaking intel, Jake?
I mean, in my opinion, yeah, there are a few. Like we had just said, it could ruin a franchise. It could tank a company. These leaks could be IP. They could be, intellectual property that gets out there, and then, people. There's always if there's a leaked trailer or leaked costumes. Do you guys remember the leaked photos from the Teen Titans, show that was coming out where everybody was like, Starfire looks like a hooker. I'm not watching this, blah, 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 blah. And so it was just a few leaked photos kind of put Teen Titans on the fence to where fans were like, am I going to watch this? Am I not going to watch it? And it can really put a company or, developers into this weird kind of situation where the public only knows part of the story. Starfire, for the rest, as far as that series goes, I watched it and had no problem with how she looked, really. And so it was one of those where the fans jumped on it very early and were like, Beast Boy looks like shit. I'm not watching this, and but at the end of the day, for what it was, Beast Boy looked fine, for the rest of the show, they fit the aesthetic. And, that could be coming from a DC fanboy. But for me, the aesthetic, it was straight across, in that whole series. And so it was one of those where early leaked photos from the set really kind of put a lot of pressure on those. And as we know, leaks can, fuel rumors. And rumors are so big in kind of culture. Look at TMZ and things like that exist today. And rumors fuel people, right? And so... we
report on rumors. We talk about rumors here on the show all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so leaks are something that fuel news, they fuel rumors, they get people going. And so it's just, they can be a good thing or a bad thing. And a big point that I think about leaks is that most of the time, unlike whistleblowers, they're not things people need to know. Right? They may be stuff that we want to know, like you said, the truth's fun, right? Our insider information's fun, right? And so it's nice to get a little preview of something and maybe see something that hasn't come out yet, see some new Pokemon in the code, maybe see some new upcoming Fortnite skins in the code, seeing some things that you can kind of anticipate or get ready for. But none of them are things you need to know, this director's a total piece of shit,
right.
And so most of the time, leaks aren't things that are hardcore, need to know basis things, in my opinion. And so it's just one of those where they're not hardcore needed.
Well, I mean, even if you don't include like the whistleblower situation, like Ray Fisher, like you could even make arguments. Like you're talking about leaked trailers and stuff like that. Okay, well, the Deadpool trailer leaked, and that's what started Deadpool.
That is true. If it wasn't for the Deadpool
Yeah.
trailer leaking, that movie may not have gotten made because it was so popular. People loved that shit. And so, yeah, very true. But do you like hot gossip, Braun?
I do.
What do you feel about leaks?
Okay, that's not that. I thought you were gonna give me some hot gossip.
No, I wish
So I think that, I mean, there's good and bad, but with especially in the sense of Deadpool trailer, I feel like that might have been an intentional leak or some. Yeah. So, and to an extent, like, studios will intentionally not leak, but they'll tease information. And I think that some of these leaks can add to the interest or kind of like fuel that, like, ooh, I want more. I got a little taste. Give me some more. But then if you leak too much, it can kind of maybe like ruin a certain experience. Like if I knew everything going into a film or a show or even a video game, it takes some of that magic away.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, people spend so much time creating these things. Shouldn't we allow them to present it to us in the way that they want us to see it? Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I was just wanting to explore some of the ins and outs and the goods and downsides of leaking, because I feel like it is complex. I mean, like I think you can't unequivocally say leaking is good or bad, because in certain situations, getting information out of there to the public is not only better for the public, but as even started new franchises. Gotten people
or gave them
employed.
new blood. So
Yeah, gave them new blood. But as we discussed in the beginning, leakers aren't the only ones that are dealing with out information publicly simply for the thrill of it. There's sometimes people that use it to hold powerful people accountable. The first example of the whistleblower that we've been talking about a lot is the Ray Fisher situation. For those who haven't been paying attention, Bronwyn, can you kind of like give like the Reader's Digest version of the Ray Fisher situation?
All right, here we go. Ray Fisher, Cliff's Notes. Happening now. So initially, he was tweeting out alleged misconduct on set. He accused Whedon of being gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable to the cast and crew on set during production. He also alleged the producers enabled Whedon's behavior instead of holding him accountable at all. When Fisher attempted to take his concerns up the proper chains of command, his career was threatened. The statements Warner Brothers came out with in reaction to this completely dispute what he's saying and don't take him seriously. They even go so far as to say that Fisher isn't cooperating with their investigation or with the investigation on them, to which he immediately tweeted out proof of his involvement in the screenshots of emails back and forth. As it stands right now, it's very much his word against theirs. And in light of everything coming out on a week-by-week basis, there have been a lot of these new announcements that can almost be seen as distractions on my end. What do you feel about it, Todd?
Yeah, I think that a couple that he pointed out was like, for instance, the Ben Affleck and starring in the Flashpoint series alongside some of the other Batmans. The other one's blanking me for right now. Who's the guy that played Vulture in not Val Kilmer? No.
Kurt Russell. No, damn it.
Not Kurt Russell. Come on now.
Wait,
Why
someone
is
in
it
chat
blanking
probably
all
is.
of us? Yeah, chat's probably just blowing
we
up
suck.
right now. I'm gonna just look it up.
Uh,
And Michael Keaton.
Michael
that's
Keaton.
it. That's
Michael
who it is.
Keaton. There we go. I knew
We're
we could
so
get.
bad at our jobs,
No.
guys. Oh,
Michael-
there we go. Jen Falian just said, "Yep, Michael Keaton."
Michael
George
Keaton.
Clooney.
Anyways, that Ben Affleck will be starring with Michael Keaton in the Flashpoint movie, and if you realize that announcement came just a couple of weeks before DC Fandom, and that was something that it really seemed like they would wait till DC Fandom to announce that, but it happened on the same day. I think it was like August 20th or so that Ray Fisher was tweeting out about all these accusations against Warner Brothers and how they treated him when Josh Whedon was on set versus when Zack Snyder was at the helm of the film. So I think it stands for, one, to really bode more to why we need to watch the Snyder Cut, because it has a more true vision. And it does seem like, especially when you look at the Justice League film that Whedon did, that he was kind of retaliated against for doing the things that he was doing, and his character was kind of stifled. And I feel like, it's beyond disgusting to do that to a character in a franchise like Cyborg, but it's just terrible to do that to another fucking human being in general. So I think that they deserve all the flack that they're getting for it, and I think that they really need to start course correcting and addressing the toxicity within their own company, and hold themselves accountable. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Jake, do you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is a classic PR tactic. I'm a public relations major. It's what I do for a living. It's how I pay the bills right now as we speak. And this is just, PR. One of the 101 tactics is to put out any release that you can that's like something that's not necessarily the most important releases, right? But stuff that'll get people talking, that is a diversion from what's really going on, right? And, you see this all the time. You see it happen anytime there's like, it'll be... You see it happen a lot in politics, where like somebody like, one of the big guys like Trump will say something crazy, and then you'll find out the next day, like while they're talking about him tweeting something, that, oh no, he actually signed a bill that's way more dangerous than whatever the fuck he was tweeting about, and so it's the whole classic look at one hand, but don't mind this one, and so that's what Warner Brothers is trying to do here. It's pretty obvious from anybody that kind of has a background in this kind of communications, especially within PR and suppression. It's a classic suppression tactic, and they're going to keep doing it too to try to keep Fisher out of the news. And so, it's up to people to kind of continue to talk about it, push back on it. And like you said, hopefully the Snyder Cut will give Cyborg the screen time and the respect that character deserers.
I
hope so too.
And so it's sad that WB and, this whole thing kind of took this direction, and that it kind of went out like this, because we're all DC fans here on the show. And so I'm hoping they'll get their shit together.
For real. For sure. He has received a lot of support from his fans, despite Warner Brothers attempting to kind of rearrange their press releases to drown him out. Yet, conversely, other leakers have been fined millions of dollars and lost their career over leaks, like the kind that Ray Fisher's doing. Jake, why is one deserving of praise while the other is to be condemned?
Well, you can't copyright hostile work environments and racism. So leaks are always going to be something that employees can be sued over, where whistleblowing, unless you sign some sort of NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements for all those that don't work within corporate, unless you've signed some sort of NDA where you can't really talk about the situation at hand, which a lot of people do. That's why, a lot of times you don't hear about things. Sometimes whenever, and, it's the classic adage of like, why didn't they come forward sooner? Or why didn't somebody say something? And sometimes it's because they're in some pretty heavy contracts where they could get sued millions of dollars and essentially like lose their livelihood and everything they've worked for just for pushing an issue, right? And so it's obvious that Ray Fisher probably didn't sign one of those agreements, and if he did, we may see some legal stuff. But the biggest thing is leaks usually involve some sort of IP that is owned by a company, right? And leaks cost more money than whistleblowers in some cases. Whistleblowers can kind of like, be swept under the rug, similar to what we're seeing happening kind of like with DC, right? Whereas leaks are much harder to sweep under the rugs because, they kind of light up on the internet. People share them. People, continue to share things, and it continues to grow, right? And so leaks get praise, but usually aren't PR worthy disasters. Especially look at some of these, like the Nintendo leak, right? The Giga leak, while Nintendo was probably like, oh, fuck us. Like we lost all this stuff. Like people aren't going to be surprised or whatever. It's not going to crush the bottom line, right? And so they really don't talk about it too often, but it is something that, they definitely didn't like. Whistleblowers really hurt the brand. That's something that I really think too. You can kind of be, if a whistleblower like a Ray Fisher really gets out there and gets ahead of this thing, and, a lot more fans start to talk about it, and even more news outlets start to pick it up, it could really hurt WB in the long run. And, and it's especially during a pivotal time with race relations and everything, how they are in America. So like I said, I really hope they get their shit together because I love Warner Brothers.
I mean, I think another aspect of the whistleblowers coming out, you could think of stuff like Mulan and, the things that have happened with that and the controversy that has erupted over that right now. And, It does not look good. I don't see any situation as a company where if you have a whistleblower that looks good on you in any circumstance. Like, it's not anyone's like whistleblowing, like, oh, they're giving their company raises and not telling anybody about it. You know, like
it's never like, oh my God, this company's donating millions to like, countries that need aid, you know, like all this other stuff. And it's like, because they've already done the PR on that. Companies already talked about that, right?
Exactly.
Leaks and whistleblowers are usually things they didn't want to talk about or weren't prepared to talk about.
Right.
But what do you think about it, Bronwyn?
Oh, I've just been like really enthralled in chat. Everyone's really involved right now. So I want to kind of touch on some of these points. I was just looking over there. Jen Phalion said that whistleblowing only works when there's attention or investigations, which I think is a really great point to make. And there has to be kind of you can't just say, oh, this is happening. You have to really get into it, which I think is why it's great in the case of Ray Fisher. Like he's tweeting things out. He's been really on his social media about it, showing, oh, you're not cooperating with investigation. He's like, actually, I am.
Yeah.
Here, look.
Here's the receipts. You know.
Receipts.
Yeah.
There. So I think that's great, especially when you have the receipts. And when you have the attention, like Chat was mentioning, you know, and that's what Warner Brothers is trying to drown him out with. So it's going to be a hard fight for him in that regard. But yeah, with that, we're going to transition over into our top Zen, which is a very, very different topic. And there's not really an easy way to bridge it. There's not really an easy way to necessarily bring these topics together, if you will. So we're going to start talking about some of the best and worst gaming acquisitions in history. We thought that, you know, with Bethesda being out there and the big Bethesda buyout being kind of the monopolizing news story this week, that it's kind of one of those stories that for some people that understand the gaming world, it's a really big deal. For others, it's just two words that one word bought another word kind of thing, you know? And so we wanted to kind of go through some of the best and worst gaming acquisitions in history to kind of talk about how important this Bethesda buyout is. And so we're going to start off with some of the worst. And number 5 leads our countdown with Microsoft's purchase of Lionhead. Tell us a little bit about that, Jake.
Yeah, so number 5 on the countdown of the best, or actually the worst acquisitions, because we're starting with the worst ones. Then we're going to get to the best ones. We like to end on high notes here. And so, but as Dotson said, Microsoft buying Lionhead. This actually didn't start off as a bad acquisition at all. Lionhead had just created Black and White 2 and the movie, neither games that I've heard of, but both of them were back in 2005. They were worried about the company's future, and really neither one of those games had sold very well, so they decided to sell the majority shares of their company, and Microsoft came a-knocking. Microsoft wanted Fable, which we all know and love, I think, for the most part, to be essentially an exclusive, and they were, ready to pay the big bucks for it. Microsoft let Lionhead do its thing for a long time. We got Fables 1, 2, as known as iconic, staples within the franchise, and I believe 3 was even a very solid game. I think some people don't like 3, but Fable 3 was amazing in my opinion. It only got better. Fable 2 was definitely the peak, though. But then it was after Fable 3 that the things really started to go to shit. Microsoft tried to get them to develop a lot of Kinect games. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but holy shit, Kinect was a nightmare. It was whenever Microsoft was really trying to get into its Nintendo vibe of like, let's do sensors, baby.
Motion.
Motion. And so there was actually a game that came out in 2012 that I never heard of. And as a Fable fan, I was like, what the hell? And it was called Fable The Journey. They pushed out this Kinect game and it just fell right on its face. Microsoft continued to try to get them to do a bunch of Kinect games, but the final nail in the coffin was the terribly long development time of Fable Legends, a game that we have been teased for years, but will never see. It was supposed to be some kind of turn action, RPG kind of thing, and it was supposed to be a return to glory for Fable, but it just never happened. But luckily enough, even though Lion's Head is dead, Fable lives. We just recently got that from the latest E3, and it's kind of as if Fable respawned, which just so happens to be number 4 on the list. Dotson, who did EA kill this time?
Yeah, well, after Microsoft was done with killing off Lion's Head and then just taking the good IPs, we talk about EA pretty much just tanking the IPs in general. EA spent intellectual properties, for those who don't know what I'm saying, IP. EA spent $445 million on an acquisition to buy Respawn Entertainment, just to tank 2 incredibly successful series. EA bought Respawn, and many studios described EA as the great axe killer, acquiring and shutting down tons of studios. But the record on acquisitions is not 100% negative. While some of the deals are unclear, a few of them have paid off, while others have been clear duds. Sometimes EA has gotten important footholds in new markets like mobile, and other times it's acquired great teams of executives and brands. But overall, Titanfall is the big property from Respawn. That was the big exclusive title that was really something that looked like it was going to be an Xbox staple. Something that I did play a lot of when it eventually came over to PlayStation. It tried to make Titanfall into the next Call of Duty, and then of course it didn't. Instead, they have basically repurposed the studio, and they've created some generic copies of super successful games like Apex. So with that said, Apex is still been increasing in popularity and still remains a staple among competitive games. Jake, do you think Bronwyn, do you think IPs like Apex may be enough to redeem this dumpster fire deal?
I'm not sure. I'm skeptical.
You're skeptical. Have you got a chance to check out Apex at all?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's all over Twitch. Jake, I know you've definitely seen it before. Have you seen Apex Legends, at least on Twitch or anything?
Oh yeah, no, I played some Apex. Yeah. Like
it
came out.
Is this the battling
Battle Royale, similar to Fortnite?
Yeah. I played this before.
Yeah.
That's why I downloaded it too, because it's like a adult Fortnite, but like it's just one of those where like I Battle Royale, I got Battle Royale fatigue, until Fall Guys came out.
Once it's cute and adorable.
Yeah, exactly.
All bets are off.
It's a different vibe. I mean, sometimes it's just you get tired of these battle royales that all feel the same.
Yeah.
Constantly competing.
Well,
what is this, real life?
Well, number 3 on our countdown is Microsoft's buy of Rare. Bronwyn, tell us a little bit about this. This is one that really kind of surprised me. I had to look into this when we looked this up.
Yeah, Microsoft bought Rare, the game producer behind Banjo-Kazooie, 007 GoldenEye, Donkey Kong Country, and Conker's Bad Fur Day in 2002. They bought them for $375 million. Now, This is right on the cusp of Microsoft making its debut into console gaming with the Xbox. And despite investing so much capital into this company, the sequels they produced to these beloved games just failed to sell. They weren't selling units, and it seemed as if that was the end of the road for Rare until they completely shifted gears and were tasked with the motion sensing Kinect. However, that was short-lived as the Kinect system also failed and eventually was discontinued. Now, Dodson, you said you kind of looked into this. Do you have anything to add onto?
I mean, like, you're talking about those IPs. You're talking about 007, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Banjo-Kazooie. These were the video games of the 90s. These were classic staples. These were games that defined a generation, and they are gone. Like, Rare Studios is nothing now. And I had when you hear those titles, especially 007, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Banjo-Kazooie, and Donkey Kong Country, you would think N64. That's at least what I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And to me, it was absolutely shocking to see the fact that I realized that these games don't exist here anymore. I had never put 2 and 2 together, but whatever happened to them? Well, I guess that's because Microsoft bought it and tanked the IP.
For the most part, they did on a lot of them. Conquers, we had a few remakes of it. Like Bronwyn said, they didn't seem to sell. But there is one that has set sales, and that's Sea of Thieves. A lot of people don't realize that Sea of Thieves was developed by Rare, and it's still out and going right now as an Xbox exclusive. It's one of the first things that the studio's produced in a long time. But I believe that's why they made it onto the list of worst, is because look at all these amazing IPs we just named, and yet the only one that Rare is still actively making or updating is Sea of Thieves.
And it's something completely new. It's something they had to restart themselves. Same thing with as we were talking about with Respawn before. I mean, like the reason they're still on the map right now is because of Apex, because they had to reinvent themselves and start from scratch.
Exactly.
So
it's going to be interesting to see what comes from Rare. This could actually end up being one of that flips to a best acquisition one day, if if things keep going.
If it does, we'll let you all know.
Number 2 on the countdown, though, was one that a lot of people told us to kind of hold out hope for when it first happened. I remember this. Do you remember this? And then now we've held out hope. We've seen the results. We can successfully say that Disney buying LucasArts and Disney buying Star Wars was a terrible decision. Jake, can you tell us more about this?
Help us, Obi-Wan. You're our only hope. But Disney buying LucasArts makes number 2 on our list. George Lucas knew gaming was going to be the future of storytelling. I still believe it is to this day. Video games like Red Dead outsold any movie in history, essentially. It's putting up like Cameron-esque numbers, right? And so it's ridiculous to think that gaming wouldn't be one of the futures of storytelling. And George Lucas knew it way back in the day. LucasArts was founded in 1986 and pumped out some amazing games for its time. But the ones that I think we all know and love was actually a collaboration with BioWare, where they made Knights of the Old Republic, one of my personal favorite games of all time. They're also well known for the Star Wars Battlefront games, which EA sadly destroyed, but we'll get to that at another time. The studio had a resurgence with the Star Wars Force Unleashed franchise. Unleashed 1 and 2 actually did do pretty well as far as sales are concerned, and were actually pretty decent games as far as Jake is concerned. And the resurgence just unfortunately wasn't enough, because when the mouse bought it out, they had some other plans. It was literally not even a few months after Disney bought out everything that is Star Wars' intellectual properties, including LucasArts, that they just shut down the studio, P. Diddy style. And decided that they were over it, and we're going to just pretty much deal out these franchises to big name corporations that have been gaming for years. It's one of the things where Disney was just like, hey, we don't make video games, and we don't want to own a studio that makes video games. That's just not our bread and butter. What we'll do is we'll license these titles out to people who make video games, which was probably the worst idea ever. Something about like LucasArts and whenever that group of creatives that worked with George Lucas back in the day to make some of the greatest Star Wars games ever made, whenever you lose that and you just ship it out to EA, who's cranking out 20 games that year, you know what I mean? It just doesn't get the TLC that it needs, and and it's been devastating for the franchise so far. I honestly didn't know that Knights of the Old Republic was a collaboration with BioWare, who just happens to be number 1 on this list. Dodd, you're telling me EA killed another company?
Yeah. I mean, look, if it's not Microsoft on here, it's definitely EA, and EA is just the Jack Ripper when it comes to killing lovable franchises. The BioWare pandemic buyout makes Respawn look like the Respawn buyout look like a chump change. To be honest, I mean the EA bought BioWare for a whopping $705 million and started off strong, remaining true to the company's flagship titles. Mass Effect 2 came out about 5 years after their acquisition, and still really highly adored by fans. But they just did nothing but tank after that, and including Mass Effect. They were also responsible for Mass Effect Andromeda, which is kind of like Mass Effect Andromeda is the season 6 of Game of Thrones to the Mass Effect series. Really? It kind of sullies the entire franchise because of how poorly that game was received. And Anthem, which was their Apex Legends, if you will, to try to kind of revamp that whole kind of series, also went to complete shit, and has continued to roll downhill ever since. these once great creators of Dragon Age Inquisition and Knights of the Old Republic
I love
have
that game.
lost their near perfect reputation once EA decided to capitalize on this opportunity. Why does EA have such a problem with maintaining these great properties, Jake?
Dude, I wish I knew. Honestly, BioWare was known as one of the best gaming, kind of like companies out there as far as like developers are concerned, right? Like if it had that BioWare logo on it, you could trust it. And I think that's why EA poached them, like that. Well, I don't think, I know. EA, they wanted those titles. They wanted Mass Effect, and it's sad what happened, like what's the old the Godfather thing? Look what they did to my boy, like it's like they destroyed him. And Andromeda wasn't, I want to say it wasn't the worst game I've ever played. It honestly, like some parts were actually pretty good. When it wasn't buggy, it wasn't a bad game. Like I know I'm going to get a little bit of pushback in chat and maybe on Twitter for that one, but it wasn't a terrible game. It just wasn't the best in the franchise by far, right? And the Frostbite engine that they used, I think, was EA's big thing. Like EA BioWare using the Frostbite engine calls for some of the most hilarious game glitches I think I've ever seen. But Dragon Age Inquisition and Dragon Age in general is one of those franchises that like it'll always go down in my heart as one of my favorite, kind of like gaming franchises that I've ever played. And it's so sad that EA's kind of let some of those properties die in a way. And I don't get why they can't keep them living. I think the biggest thing is that whenever they get their greedy little corporate hands on it, they cut out a lot of the creatives and they cut out a lot of the management and a lot of the people who made those teams successful and replace them with people who will make them more successful monetarily, or at least how they feel like it will, right? And you lose some of the TLC, the love that goes into making video games.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is our top 5 worst in the gaming acquisitions, but we didn't want to leave on such a sour note. We wanted to talk about some of the best ones too, because we don't know what's going to happen with this Xbox Bethesda buyout. We don't know if it's going to be one of the best. We don't know if it's going to be one of the worst. So we wanted to take both and compare. So number 5 in our countdown was a strategic acquisition by Facebook to buy Oculus VR. Bronwyn, tell us a little bit about Facebook's acquisition of Oculus VR and why it's number 5 in our best acquisitions.
Yeah, well, Oculus is now an extension of Facebook, bringing us their virtual reality headsets, formerly known as Oculus VR. The division produces virtual reality headsets, including the Oculus Rift and the Oculus Quest. I actually have an Oculus Rift that I need to use way more than I do.
Yeah, you do.
In March of 2014, Facebook acquired Oculus for $2.3 billion in cash and stocks. In 2015, Oculus VR acquired Surreal Vision, a British startup focused on 3D reconstructions and mixed reality, stating that it could be possible for Oculus to develop products with the concept of telepresence. This marks number 5 on our list because even though Oculus was hemorrhaging money, Facebook took a chance on the VR and it seems to have paid off. Without Facebook taking that chance, VR gaming was on its deathbed and now it seems to be having a resurgence. Dotson, what do you foresee in the future of VR gaming?
I really want to see more of VR gaming, honestly. I've had the chance to play some VR when I've had, remote opportunities, had friends that have sets or anything like that. And it is an entirely new experience of gaming and definitely the future of storytelling for sure. Definitely taking video gaming to the next level. Now, Facebook, as a company themselves, do I want them being the pioneers of virtual reality? Not really, because I do think they're a trash company. I do think that at the end of the day, that the capitalist is strong in them. Okay, they're much more concerned about having activity on whatever media platforms they are than making sure they're keeping their platform something that's safe for everybody, welcoming for everybody,
right.
Morally, yeah, like they have no backbone against white supremacy is what I'm trying to dance around, like that kind of shit. And so if I had to pick, yes, I wouldn't pick Facebook to be the kind of company to pioneer that, but it was a very strategic acquisition for them. And because of it, we've seen, like those 3D photos on your friend's Facebook feed where you can put your phone in front of your eye and you can look around and look where all they are. I mean, all of those developments have been because of that partnership, and it seems to be they seem to be figuring out really a lot of good ways to be sympathetic, I guess is the right word. Is that the right word?
Synergy.
Out here. Synergy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was popping off in chat.
No, like it is. Synergy is actually the word that they would use. Mark Zuckerberg, when he sought out to build Facebook, he said one day, he kind of like, he figured everyone's going to live online. Like he had this kind of like Ready Player One idea for the future, right? Which makes sense because it's, Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. And so like, boring dystopias seem to be their kind of thing, right? Yeah. And so like, if you're living online, updating your status and all that, the next logical step is to be actually like jacked in with, like the headsets and everything. And so while I do agree on a lot of the points on Facebook, it's still one of those where like, if they didn't make this move, VR gaming could have died. Not because it was it was so essential for them to just kind of like pick this up, prop it up too. They allowed Oculus to kind of like keep their creative control, do what they kind of wanted, and produce an affordable headset. You can go buy the Quest for like, I think it's like 150, maybe. It's not that high, and it's one of those where you can automatically plug in and wireless play VR games. Right now, I've gotten a chance to play one of the big boys because when I was an intern, or not an intern, but whenever we had our offices in the bottom of AOL, a now dead company. Like they had a VR headset there hooked to this big fucking computer, and you could go play a bunch of really cool games. And oh my god, dude, a really good VR headset is kind of mind blowing. Yeah. And if it not for Facebook to take this kind of risk, I don't know if we'd have the tech. So it's really, it's a fucking like, man, it's one of those where you're like, damn, why did Facebook have to buy it? But like, hopefully it still works out in the long run.
But I get your point. At least the ball is rolling in that technology, that the development of that. And over the past years since this acquisition, we've seen that technology increase, and that's the big thing that we want to see. So, that's something, right?
Exactly, right? Not everything corporations do are bad, I guess.
My parents actually love their VR headsets. They are the ones who got me into the VR gaming. And my mom likes to play the games that are like nice, high cardio, fun things. But my dad, on the other hand, he likes to just put on the headset and sit in the loading screen because it's so beautiful. He'll just sit there and just look around and be like, "Oh, remember this like little nice world?"
That sounds adorable. It's just so nice in here. That's cute.
They have it set up so it's like they're looking at the northern lights in this like geodescent dome. So yeah.
That is nice. Well, number 4 in our countdown is one that surprised me. Bandai bought Namco.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what Namco was until I looked it up. Tell us a little bit about Bandai's acquisition of Namco and why it's number 4 on the countdown.
Number 4 on the countdown, Dodd, is it's an old school one. That's a reason why a lot of people aren't going to really know much about it. Namco is kind of the undisputed king of box arcade games. You've probably heard of them because they made Pac-Man.
There you go.
Pac-Man could have made our top 10 list of the most iconic characters last week, but unfortunately, he didn't make it. But honestly, he is one of those iconic characters that carried Namco, and Namco's kind of still alive today, as you'll see. First, they were acquired by Atari Japan when Atari was definitely trying to make its big kind of like, spread into video game. And it actually set off a heated bidding war with Sega. And so eventually fell to Atari Japan, but then they would later have a rift while they were competing directly with Nintendo for much of the 80s. So you could probably get that was not just it was a very high stress work environment, right? Because Nintendo was just exploding. Namco had, controlled essentially the entire market during the box arcade era, but was really struggling to make that home, kind of jump. And so Namco produced several critically acclaimed, commercially successful franchises, including Pac-Man, Galaxian, Tekken, Ace Combat, Dig Dug, Soul Calibur, Ridge Racer, and Tails. And they're known as one of the most prolific video game companies of all time. In the past, it has operated several arcade centers and theme parks alongside production of films, toys, and even speech impairment devices. So They're kind of getting into a little bit of everything. Its merger with Bandai makes sure that it is going to continue to live on, and the company is still alive today because this acquisition was a buyout merger acquisition. So it was one of those where when Bandai decided to buy Namco, they bought the full stake in it, but at the end of the day, like, the company merged as one, so it became Bandai Namco. And even though Pac-Man's a big seller, it's still not the biggest seller on our list. Dodd, tell us who's number 3.
Number 3 is actually, we've talked a lot about Microsoft tonight, but Microsoft buying Mojang. And if you don't know who Mojang is, you're probably amongst you're probably amongst many. Like, I didn't know who Mojang was, but Mojang is a Swedish video game developer and a studio of Xbox Game Studios that's based in Stockholm. It was founded by Marcus Pearson in 2009 as Mojang Specifications, inheriting the name from a previous video game venue that he left 2 years prior. Mojang began development on the sandbox game known as Minecraft that year, which would become the best-selling video game of all time and establish a successful multimedia franchise. Worth it for Minecraft alone, but basically it was just Minecraft alone. While it may be iconic, it's not nearly as iconic as number 2 on the countdown, which maintains it's as like one of the best Sony exclusives out there. I mean, pretty much it defines what Sony exclusives are. But that would be Insomniac Games coming in at number 2 on our countdown. Bronwyn, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Sony buys Insomniac Games, starting out as Extreme Software, founded in 1994 by Ted Price, but then was renamed Insomniac Games a year later. The company is most known for developing several early PlayStation heavy hitters, Spyro the Dragon, Ratchet and Clank, as well as the Resistance franchise in 2014's Sunset Override and 2018's Spider-Man. This is a more timely story. Only last year, in early 2019, the studio was acquired by Sony Interactive Entertainment, becoming part of SIE Worldwide Studios. We'll really have to wait and see how this plays out, but so far, so good. This buyout was a likely pairing given the history between Sony and Insomniac. I mean, the new Spider-Man is coming out and it's looking great too. Insomniac's reputation is glowing. It was named the 20th best video game developer by IGN and one of the best places to work in America by the Society for Human Resource Management. Only time will tell, but Jake, do you think that there's a good chance the success story will continue?
Oh, 100%. The new Spider-Man Miles Morales looks phenomenal. That last Spider-Man game was great. I had a great time playing it. I had to borrow a fucking PlayStation to play it, unfortunately, because I'm the Xbox guy here, right? And so Insomniac's just one of those that, like, it made so much sense for Sony to buy this one out. When I think Sony, I think of things like Spyro. I think of things like Ratchet and Clank. Because when I first had my PlayStation, those were the big franchises on it. Ratchet and Clank. Oh my God, Jack and Daxter.
Try to think of who would be, in essence, Sony's Mario. You think of characters from Insomniac Games.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And they just continue to drive it home with games like Spider-Man and, being able to make, iconic franchises like that. And Spyro just had a comeback too. I believe Ratchet and Clank is getting a new game as well on the PS5. Yeah. I'm excited for a lot of these Insomniac titles to be making comebacks. And this was a great acquisition by Sony.
Oh yeah, it was a match made in heaven. It was something that should have happened a long time ago. Honestly, something that I did thought happened a long time ago with how much Insomniac has just simply produced exclusives that were just for Sony. But it's worked out so well so far. They've had this relationship pretty much already, so I don't see this relationship going anywhere south. But having to be able to. Those titles that Insomniac Game has are the titles that end up getting me to buy PlayStation. So Sony finally officially, putting a ring on it, I think really is a great thing for them, and it was a smart move on their part.
Yeah, we'll definitely continue to see nothing but great exclusives come from them. So, great job,
Yeah.
Sony.
Jake, what do you think number one on this countdown is?
Yeah, number one on the countdown, I decided to jump the gun. I'm calling it. Microsoft buying out ZeniMax, aka Bethesda Studios. It's probably the greatest acquisition of all time. We went into this a little bit earlier. Obviously it was for a $7.5 billion cash buyout. And Microsoft has really struggled in the past, with Sony on exclusives. I think Sony is kind of known as the exclusive guy. Like, Sony's got those exclusives. And so it's about time Microsoft said, you know what? We're done. We're done playing ball. Like, we're going to buy, you know what? Skyrim, it's ours. And so I've missed single player story driven games. That's why, I had to borrow my friend's PlayStation to play Spider-Man, God of War, and I'm excited. I may buy the PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4 just to play Ghost of Tsushima. And so this is a great acquisition, in my opinion, because it kind of shows that Sony is buying out these studios that have had a history of making some awesome single-player story-driven games. If Bethesda could remake a Fallout New Vegas and it be an Xbox exclusive, not remake Fallout New Vegas, I just mean reenact that feeling, right? Like give us that feeling again of an awesome game, and it be an Xbox exclusive. It's something that's going to have people flocking to Xbox. And so let's just hope this isn't a lion's head situation.
That's what I was about to say. I mean, you have Microsoft twice on our worst list too. Yes. I mean, Rare was also another acquisition that they completely tanked that IP as well. With having all these great stuff out here, how do we know that this isn't going to be a lion's head situation? How do you have the confidence that this isn't going to be what could be even worse, a Rare situation?
We could only hope that they learned from their past mistakes, right? Like the actual definition of what stupidity is, doing the same thing again, expecting the different results, right? And so we can just hope that the $1 trillion corporation that is Microsoft isn't insane and doesn't just continue to do the same shit over and over. Hopefully with a buyout this big and it being Bethesda and Bethesda's track record too, they should allow these guys to kind of have room to roam. They should let them be able to kind of do their thing, produce some great games, and get them out there as Xbox exclusives, or PCs too. Like Microsoft's always, I think people kind of forget, Microsoft has you. Microsoft has you no matter where you're at. You're either using Windows on your PC build, or you're playing an Xbox, or you're just Sony and you're over there kind of doing your own thing. I don't know what they do, but
hey, look, no one's keeping score. But if we were keeping score, Sony has only one mention as number 2 on the countdown of best, and no mentions on the countdown of worst. So the scores don't look well for the Microsoft.
No, it's true. Microsoft's definitely crashed a lot of franchise. I mean, dude, Skype was even a Microsoft acquisition. And look at Zoom. How the hell did Zoom take over in a pandemic when Skype was well known? You know what I mean? Microsoft has dropped the ball many a times. But we can only hope that, like I said, they give Bethesda the kind of free reign to do what they've done in the past and create some great games. And hopefully they push them to create something besides another Skyrim. Give us a new Elder Scrolls. It's about damn time, Bethesda.
Right?
Be great. That'd be great. Well, I think that'll about do it for this episode of Geek Life. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and checking us out today. I don't believe we got any new followers this stream, but Bronwyn, tell us what's going on in chat. How's chat been?
Oh, it's been
lit.
It's been very lit. Yeah.
No, I accidentally said Jack and Daxter because I thought of it. So in my head, it's Ratchet and Clank PlayStation, right? And then I think Jack and Daxter was like the Xbox version of that. And so it was right there in that time frame when I was switching from PlayStation to Xbox.
No, Ratchet and Clank and Jack and Daxter are both Sony.
PlayStation, right? Both
yes.
Sony.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I played them both. And so as soon as I said Jack and Daxter, people started going off about it. And it makes sense. I loved Jack and Daxter, man. Ratchet and Clank was dope, don't get me wrong, but Jack and Daxter, so good. So good. I need to go back and play some of those games.
I forgot about Jack and Daxter, and as soon as you brought it up, I'm like, wait, was that the game? And I looked it up really quickly. I'm like, oh yeah, it was.
Oh, nostalgia came flooding back to the entire chat when I mentioned Jack and Daxter.
Jack and Daxter. You could steal people's floating cars in that one. I remember that one.
Yeah.
That was fun. I would just jump on it. cars and then steal it from them.
So much
That was
fun.
always my favorite part. I know that's not supposed to be your favorite part of that game, but it was nevertheless. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Big shout out to our moderator, Little Snelly. Thank you to our video producer, Cape. And all of our followers for all the support. If you like any of this content, you want more of it, you can always follow us. You can always subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff.
All the good things.
All the good things. We also have personal socials. I have a Twitter and I have Twitch. They're at Rue Spain. Where can they find you, Jake?
You can find me at Gonzo Gone Live. It's right over here in the little corner. That's on both Twitch and Twitter. I'm going to be playing some Among Us probably later this week. I'm also going to try to stream some crazy stuff. Like, I've been thinking about watching some reality TV, and let's just talk shit about it.
Oh, fun, yeah.
That'd be great. That's awesome. Braun, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitch and on Instagram. Be maybe doing some aerial silk performances on Twitch and cosplay, so you should check that out. And follow me on Instagram because I was playing with projectors last night. And go check out my story because that'll be amusing.
Nice. Good stuff. All right, well, we'll be back same time, same place next week for more of the nerdy news you need to know. Till then, peace.